Good morning, Lily.
Good morning, Tom.
We've known each other for a few years.
Actually, it's 25
Oh
to
my
30
God.
years.
And of course, we met when we were both working for Kimberly-Clark back then, which was a great consumer products company. And you went on to have a great career in consumer products and also in banking. And now you are running Manpower.
Correct.
Yeah, very good. So one of the things we wanted to talk to somebody in your position about is to help us better understand the challenges that you guys as vendors uh, face in dealing with clients. I'm imagining that not all clients are equally gifted in terms of working with search companies, and there must be some things that you would be able to help us better understand. How can people be a better client of you?
Okay. First of all, in the past, a lot of the firm, when they wanted to start the recruitment process, what they
Right.
do is that they just have the perhaps HR manager just pick up the phone and do a verbal briefing to the agency on their requirement.
Right.
But at Manpower, what we like to see in terms of like ideal briefing, it
Hmm.
should be a written um, brief whereby we totally understand the job description, the criteria requirements, and we often ask for the client's company organization structure.
Oh, right.
So we
Okay.
would know where this candidate will be sort
Fits
of
in.
like fixed in their organization chart. Who are
Hmm.
they reporting into?
Right.
And the possibility of understanding what their career, as career plan would be.
Right. So in other words, where a person coming in to fill this position, what are the other opportunities that they might have in front of them?
Exactly, because nowadays you're talking about um, candidates who are a lot more well versed than before.
Hmm.
Especially nowadays, we are facing the issue of talent shortage, and
Right.
that is the echoing issues that we actually face globally as
Right.
well.
So what challenges do you face? So a client calls you and says, "Hey, we need to hire a senior engineer or whatever," um, and then they provide you some kind of a job description, I would imagine,
Hmm.
and then the organization chart thing that you're talking about. Okay. And do they also then provide you with an idea of what the compensation and benefits would
Yes,
be?
most of the time, that is pretty much a given
Okay.
brief that they have to give us the scope, kind of, as to what kind of compensation, what kind of benefits that the
Right.
company have to
Right.
offer in order for us to kind of narrow the scope of the search.
Right. So once you've had that information flow from the person, then obviously they're going to say, "How much is this going to cost me?"
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
So, and oftentimes, as we were talking about before, that kind of conversation, while might take 30 seconds to discuss, it's not really so much the focus of what the discussion should be about. It should be about what kind of being able to land this candidate or land a candidate that can do that job. How important is that to us?
Definitely. Definitely. Nowadays, believe it or not, there's actually more than 3,000 recruitment firm exits in Thailand,
Wow.
of which the ones that really hold recruitment license are less than 100.
Really?
So you're talking about the majority of the firm, the search firm here, operating kind of illegal.
Right.
Okay, that's one thing.
Well, it's not kind
Um,
of. It
uh,
is.
and the second thing, when an international search company, we do have a standard that we adhere to,
Right.
right? And with that, we like to think that we are able to provide, a value added to your search more than just a regular, screening the candidates and just send the resume out.
Right.
Because we actually do a lot more preparation in our back end before we worked on that. First of all, nowadays PDPA is a mandate here. We still find that some search firms still basically just rush out and send the candidate's profile out before even asking for permission.
Right.
At Manpower, first thing first, when we select the candidates, the first thing we do is that we have to call for consent. For every consent for every single assignment before we send the candidates out.
Right.
But even despite that, we still target that our turnaround time is no more than 48 hours
Mhm.
after the
So,
brief.
along with that, because I know everybody's concerned about data privacy, obviously, should be. Um, there's this issue of, if the client is interested in the candidate, then they're
Mhm.
also probably going to want to have you or themselves do some kind of verification, whether that's a reference check or whatever else. And the candidate probably has to sign off on that as well,
Yes,
right?
definitely.
They have to give
Yes.
the permission that
Yes.
you can contact my previous employers and whatnot. Okay. Is so screening is one of the things that is that generally included in the package that you would discuss with the client, or does the client sometimes want to do their own screening?
For Manpower, is part of the recruitment process that we
Okay.
service the client.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So we have a format, a fixed format. We show the client these are the questions that we will ask for reference checked. If the clients have anything more specific that they would like for us to incorporate, then we are more than willing to do that. Then we would, ask the candidates for, reference in terms of, first of all, their permission to do the PDPA. Second, the names of the reference that they wanted to give us,
Mm-hmm.
and we will proceed accordingly.
Okay. And then once
But excuse me, but
go
in
ahead.
terms of if the clients would also like to expand the search to like criminal check, financial,
Oh, okay.
checking with credit bureaus, that would be additional fees that we
Right.
can offer.
But that is something that you do offer.
Yes, yes.
What about verification of education with educational institutions to contact them to make sure that the degrees that they list they actually have?
That would be additional fee. That would be any other, reference check. We only do
Okay.
work reference check.
Okay. So contacting previous
Yeah,
employers.
exactly. That's
Okay.
incorporated into the standard service.
Right.
But for additional service, it would just be a minimal fee.
Right.
Yeah.
There was an interesting bit of research I read some years back about approximately 1/3 of the information that's provided on a CV or application. Is that correct?
Very true.
That's something that you try to get as much insight
Yes.
into as possible,
Yes,
right?
because we represent the client
Mhm.
and we wanted to make sure that everything that we put forward is accurate and correct.
Right,
Mhm.
right. Yeah, it seems like about every year you can kind of go through any one of the big business journal or publications and find some really embarrassing case where somebody has hired somebody and then later found out that their experience or education or whatever just wasn't what they told them.
So, like for example, at Manpower,
Hmm.
when we send the candidate's CV to the client, what we do is that we would have a summary section whereby this would be based on our personal interview with the candidates.
Right,
We even check right down to the reason why they move from job to job. Would be one of the rationale whereby clients would make their judgment on the candidates as well, whether or not the candidates is willing to be a long time employee with them. They're
right.
trying to understand right down to the Pacific, and we do just that.
Right. So I want to ask you another question about, I'm going to go back to COVID if I can for just a
Okay.
minute, because I think COVID has disrupted a lot of things.
Mm.
And of course, there's been a lot of publication about the great resignation and, people are not going back into the office and all of these kinds of things that are affecting finding and sourcing and getting candidates to agree to take job offers. How has the search business changed since now that we're into what I would call post-COVID?
Mhm.
What's changed from before COVID till now?
First of all, it has to do with the economy.
Uh-huh.
The economy is not truly picked up
True.
yet.
Not here. It's true.
And especially, having the issue of, the Ukraine and Russian war, it doesn't help because a lot of manufacturing that's basically exporting, the product,
All right.
they are actually being put on either on hold or reduction in terms of headcount because of the orders that comes in reduce,
Right.
right? So in terms of because we also do a lot of outsourcing contractual worker for manufacturing as well. So we're seeing that particular sector has not been fully recovered yet.
Mhm.
Now, in terms of like the white collar sector, there is also on that as well, whereby a lot of the times that we receive the client's brief halfway through the recruitment, pick up the call and said, listen, either global or regional, put a cap on hiring freeze. Therefore, we would like to put,
A hold.
a hold on it.
Mhm.
So that is one of the things that show that it's not have been, fully recovered.
Right.
Secondly, in terms of the candidate side, you are very true in that right now it's very difficult to recruit sort of like a traditional mindset candidate.
Mhm.
We basically grew up with candidates pool because we're like them, right? Candidates pool who's willing to put in 12, 13 hours a day. Back in those days when we were together with at Kimberly Clark,
Right.
fast moving consumer goods company are just like that. We work
Right.
on weekends. We do markets visit on weekends.
Right.
But nowadays, the first thing, the candidates ask would be, does your client have a hybrid work mode?
Right.
The answer most of the time is yes. How many days? Because one day is not enough. Okay. And for those companies, especially nowadays in financial institution industry, a lot of them would just say that the work you only required to be in the office one day a week. So that is in turn very, very attractive.
Right.
So that's the dilemma that we are facing with at the moment
Right.
after post COVID.
Well, I have 3 daughters that are all living and working in Chicago, and they're all on hybrid work schedules, and they enjoy it. And I don't think their employers are ever going to get them back into the office 5 days a week.
Uh-huh.
They just don't want to do it. I mean, the other thing is,
But excuse me, Tom, but I'm not saying that hybrid work mode is bad for everyone.
right,
Of course, if we have, a highly disciplined, employees, actually hybrid work mode would give us the company a lot more output because
that's what I was going to say.
exactly because taking myself for example, already 7 o'clock, I don't have to get dressed, I don't have to drive up.
Right.
7 o'clock, I turn on the computer and I'm on it
Right.
already,
Right.
and I would just work all the way until God knows when.
7 or 8 o'clock at night.
Exactly, and
Right.
I find myself a lot more productive when I
Exactly.
work from home. But then again, it would only work if you have a measurement of how productive they are.
Right.
Okay. So, for example, for a role such as telesales, where you have sort of like a platform
Mhm.
that you can track the numbers of calls, the number of effective
Sure.
calls, then that would work. It doesn't matter where they work,
Right.
right? But perhaps in other work role, that does not require a project based
Mhm.
interaction, you will never be able to measure their productivity,
Right.
right?
Right. So let me ask you kind of a difficult question. How would you describe your ideal client?
My my ideal list would be a client that treat us, the recruitment firm, as a strategic partner. What I mean by that is they basically let us get involved in understanding their company,
Mhm.
allowing us to meet with the hiring manager,
Right.
because most of the companies we only deal with the
HR.
recruitment manager. By us putting us in front of the hiring manager, we would be able to have a list of questions that we ask as well,
Mhm.
as to what are the specific requirements, what are the types of personality, what are the key challenges that you face, what would be the career advancement for this particular candidate. So there's a lot more insightful questions that only hiring managers can answer,
Right.
right?
Right.
So that's one of the examples on how to be a good strategic partner. Second would be the companies that willing to share with us the organization chart.
Right.
Okay, so this is the structure, 2023 structure. In 2 years time, 3 years time, this is how our company will evolve.
Mhm.
Okay, whether or not it's going to be expanding sideways
Right.
or expanding vertically, so that of how we can narrow down the search, and also the type of the personality of the candidates that would fit,
Right.
right?
Do you find that there are companies who maybe have some reluctance to share that kind of information where, for instance, putting in an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement between the two companies that says, okay, we're going to retain you for search. We'd like to work with you in the long term, but we want you, we will sign an NDA with you that you won't release information that we share with you to anybody else,
Mm-hmm.
and that you will not recruit our people because that's the business that you're in for some period of time after that. Do you have any arrangements like that?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. It happens a lot more often than you think, and it would a lot of the time it would be from Manpower side that we offer that to
Oh,
our
good.
client. I said we are more than happy to sign the NDA with you so that you can be comfortable in working with us.
As a search firm, do you ever get the opportunity, the chance to come in and actually observe the hiring manager and the hiring manager's team
We ask
do
for
an
that.
interview? Do you?
Yes, we ask for
Fantastic.
that. For the roles that was first of all difficult,
Right.
for the roles that we tried to place several times
Right.
and it was not successful,
Right.
for the roles that we find that a lot of qualified candidates drop off halfway, we would insist on perhaps observing,
Right.
and immediately afterwards we would send a summary to the either HR manager or recruiting hiring manager,
Mhm.
the line manager, saying that these are the things that we observe,
Right.
and perhaps we can discuss more on how it can be improved.
Does Manpower, have you ever looked at providing interviewer training to your clients? Because I've seen over the years a lot of people are terrible at interviewing.
We do have such service. When we go pitch for a new client,
Right.
we would be showing our clients the kind of 360 services that
Right.
we have, because Manpower we offer basically a total
Turnkey.
turnkey
Yeah.
HR solution base, right? But for us to be kind of very direct and say to the clients up front, they might take it as a bit insulting by saying that,
Yep.
by the way, can we give you some kind of training on recruitment interviewing process? But 90% of the time, it is so essential that some recruiters should undergo such training.
Right.
I know that during our time in Kimberly-Clark, you're the one who insisted on, sending us through this course called Targeted Selection.
Right.
Remember, we have this like massive textbook that we have to review.
Right.
And sad to say that I have not heard of any other companies that
To do
have done
that.
just like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess one of the things that sometimes people miss, particularly the hiring managers, is that the hiring manager who's a manager probably already knows how to evaluate and interview people. But one of the things that they miss is if I have some people in my team who are not yet managers, but I do is to have them get involved in the interviewing process because you're learning how to observe and evaluate behavior. And by the way, that's one of the key skills you're going to have to learn how to do if you become a supervisor or a manager. So I always looked at that as kind of an introduction to management, if you will, as so training the people in the hiring managers team yet who are still probably individual contributors how to interview helps prepare them for the next role. So I'm happy to hear that people are allowing you guys to come in and do that because I think I've sat in on lots and lots of interviews over the years, and one of my least favorite forms of interview is what I call the Inquisition, which is a panel interview where you have like three managers or three people in the hiring manager's team line up and the candidate's sitting over there. And the candidate gets questions from the panel. And the panel likes that idea because it takes them less time. They only have to take an hour of their time, right? And the candidate only has to take an hour of their time. But the thing that I always felt got missed in that, there's no rapport, right? Because these are the people that if you're hired, you're going to wind up working with. And if they're sitting there in a panel and one of them is doing 80% of the talking and another one is doing 20% of the talking and the third one says absolutely nothing, there is no rapport that's occurring. So I think the opportunity to look at the interview is satisfying a number of needs, not just collecting information, but building rapport is another very important one because it kind of predicts whether or not if you make an offer, someone's going to accept it or not, right?
Yeah, that's an excellent point. But sadly, actually, we're seeing a lot more of that nowadays.
Really?
Yes.
The panel interviews?
Exactly. Because like I said, because of this hybrid work mode thing, the ability to get everybody, to come in all at once to do a face-to-face interview is very limited. So we're seeing a lot more companies, doing this panel interview.
Are they doing it via Zoom or are they doing it
both,
in person? Okay.
Both, which we always advise our clients against that.
Right.
Yeah, we believe in a face-to-face, sit-down, proper, one-on-one interview.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's unfortunately, I'm afraid it is a little bit of a lost art. But it's something, whenever we talk about recruiting and selection, and you realize, and I know you do, how important that process is. It's still very disappointing to find that a lot of clients kind of look at it as something they have to do, but they just want to get through it quickly.
But yeah, because they're not educated on it.
Right.
And that's one of the things that at Manpower, what we like to do is to educate our, clients more and more on that. And with that, we just recently launched what we call a talent solution division, whereby we would act as an advisor to our, clients on all matters related to talent, talent solution.
Right. One of the things that I found that always frustrated me in the selection process, as it relates to the rest of the human resource process, is that there's a disconnect oftentimes between the criteria that the organization and the hiring manager are using to hire somebody and the criteria that they're using to evaluate their performance. And to me, it always made sense that if this is what you're looking for when you hire them, then that's what you should be looking at once they're hired. And oftentimes the form for appraisal comes from headquarters and it lands over here, but there's no correlation between that and the criteria you use to hire people,
Exactly.
which
Exactly.
is a mistake, I think.
Mhm.
Anyway, um, the other thing I was going to ask you, Lily, is there recruitment and selection is not just about, it's like a generic platform. It depends on the people that you're going to be hiring. So you mentioned kind of this outsourcing thing, which I'm imagining is for lower level staff, production staff, retail staff, that kind of thing. And then there is kind of like what we call professional level individual contributor hiring, which would be your professional accountants and your salespeople and your professional kind of you get up to managerial and executive level.
Yes.
So you actually represent all of those different hiring scenarios,
Yes.
everything from outsourcing through executive talent. How would you describe the difference, if there is any difference, between looking for a non-supervisory accountant, but a professional accountant, somebody who's like a business analyst or something like that, and somebody who's like a controller who would be supervising accountants, for instance?
Mhm. Um, First and foremost, we have a database where we basically provide every single details of the candidates
Mhm.
pool. So right away, we would know at that what particular level that this candidates fits right in,
Right.
right? Um, for Manpower, we have a different 2 3 different models where we work with potential candidates. For example, for the ones that back office staff levels, we have what we call express perm, whereby jobs will be sent in with clients requests sent in, and we would have a team that basically just work on database alone and be able to send out candidates profile within 48 hours.
Okay.
And in those role, in terms of screening, it would be telephone screening, whereby we call telephone and Zoom Microsoft
Depending on
Team,
where they are, right?
depending on their are to do the first level of screening, and most of that would be entry level position.
Okay.
Okay, for when you move up to middle manager level, for Manpower, we would require a face-to-face interview, whereby we would also have a recruitment manager at managers
Yeah.
who do the process to do the interview,
Right.
and making sure that their journey is in accordance to their expectation.
Right.
Okay, now as for director's position, C level, it would involve our directors from our team. Some of the really unique position, I would be doing the interview and interception myself.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I guess what what I like to say is that we also have a format as to how we intercept the candidates and the clients from our end to ensure that the candidate's journey is pleasant.
Right. It's showing respect for the level of the candidate so that they don't have a 22-year-old who's worked with you for 3 weeks interviewing a vice
Yes.
president.
Yes.
Right. Okay. That makes sense. Perfect. Okay. So if in terms of what would be the difference? You don't have to talk about the amount, but what would be the difference in the fee structure, for instance, that you would have for an executive versus an individual contributor? Are they all the same fee structure?
No.
Ah,
No. But the majority of fee structure for mass recruitment, we call it mass perm,
right,
would obviously be lower
right.
than the ones that are individual placement.
Mm-hmm.
And the fees for executive recruitment would be slightly higher.
Right.
than the normal managerial classification.
And so most of those fees are kind of based off their
Annual
compensation
income,
package,
yes,
their
yes,
annual remuneration.
yes.
Okay, all right, very good. Well, I think we are, time has gone too fast, as it always does, but thank you, Lily, very much. I think we've gotten some insights as to what it's like from your side of the desk. So thank you
Mhm.
very much.
Thank you so much for having me.